Hi guys, today we are going to review everything that we've learned in chapter 4 so far. So I'm going to do a problem and then I'll have you guys do a similar problem. So on the first ones it says our topic that we first did was slope. And remember, to find a slope when you're given a graph, we simply count our rise over our run. So on this first example here, I would count and say that I went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So down 5 and to the right 2. So since I went down 5, it's -5, and right 2 is +2. And remember, it's nice to have our slope as a fraction. It helps with graphing. I'm also going to do number 2. So in this one, just pick 2 points. Same thing you're going to have to do on 3 on your own. I don't rise up or down any. So my slope would start with 0 on top since I don't rise any. But I do go right 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to have to do 0 divided by 4, which is 0. So the slope of 2 is just 0. So go ahead and try number 3 on your own. For number 4 and 5, you're going to have to use the slope formula. So remember, the slope formula says to subtract your y's on top and your x's on the bottom. So the first thing I always do is I label my first coordinate x1 and y1 and my second coordinate x2 and y2. And then I'm going to follow my formula. So again, it says to do y2 minus y1 first. So here's y2, here's y1. So -4 minus -1. All over. Then on the bottom, it says to do x2 minus x1. So here's my x2, here's my x1. So I would do -3 minus -12. So when I go to clean this up, remember our minus negative is really like adding. So -4 plus 1 makes -3. And on the bottom, -3 minus -12 turns into -3 plus 12, which is 9. Now this slope can be reduced. If you were to type in your calculator -3 divided by 9 and then hit math, enter, enter, it would show you that it would reduce to -1/3. All right, go ahead and try number 5 on your own using that same formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, now we're going to skip to number 7. So in this group of problems, we're using slope-intercept form or standard form. I'm actually going to do number 6, and I'll have you guys do number 7. It says write a linear equation with a slope of 1 and the y-intercept of -7. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. So I'm just going to plug those in where they belong. So I would have y equals, it says my slope is 1, so 1x, and the y-intercept, which is here, is -7. So you could either write plus -7 or just -7. For your number 7, it says to identify the slope and y-intercept of this equation. So I'll let you think about this. This is like +0. So you need to pull out the slope and also tell me what is the y-intercept. So go ahead and try number 7 now. For number 8 and 9, it says to identify the slope and the y-intercept. And our equation is given to us in standard form, which remember is like ax plus by equals c. In order to find the slope and the y-intercept, we're going to have to solve this for y so that it looks like y equals mx plus b. So we're going to get the y all by itself. So your first step would be to subtract 2x and put it on the other side. Those cancel, so we're left with 5y on the left. On the right side of our equal sign, we have a -2x and we have a +20. We can't combine those because they're not like terms, so we'll leave it. negative 2x plus 20. Our last step to get this y by itself would be to divide everything by 5. I can't really do negative 2 divided by 5, so I'm going to leave that negative 2/5 x, but 20 divided by 5 is 4. So I'm finished. I solved it for y. So then notice, remember the m is the slope. So my m is negative 2/5. My b is the y-intercept. So my y-intercept is 4. And that would be the answer. So you're going to do the exact same thing for number 9. For number 10 and 11, we're given a graph and it wants us to write the equation. So remember, our equation will look like y equals mx plus b. Again, m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So that's where it crosses the y-axis. Those are the two things we have to pull off of this graph. So let's count our slope. We'd have to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, rise 7, and go right 2. So my slope is 7/2. My b is where it crosses the y-axis, which is right there where I'm coloring in blue. So that point is at -1, -2, -3. So this is my answer to number 10. So what you're going to do for 11 is first count your slope. Remember, we do that by doing our rise over run. And that's the number that goes in for m. Then you find where it crosses the y-axis. So where does it cross? That's your b. And then just plug them into y equals mx plus b. So go ahead and try 11 now. All right, let's jump down to number 14. And it says we're going to find our x and our y-intercept. So first things first, let's do our x-intercept. So we're going to plug 0 in for y and solve for x. Okay, so when I do that, plug 0 in for y, so it'd be 4x minus 0 equals 4. Well, 4x minus 0 is just 4x, so we have 4x equals 4. Divide by 4, divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So my x-intercept is at 1. So I write that 1, 0. To get our y-intercept, we're going to plug 0 in for x and solve for y. So very similar. So where there's an x, I'm going to change that to a 0. So instead of writing 4x, I'm going to write 4 times 0 minus y equals 4. Well, 4 times 0 is just 0. So I'm left with -1y equals 4. I'm going to write that over here. To make that a positive, I'm going to divide by a -1. So my answer would be y equals -4. I write that 0, -4. All right, so you're going to go ahead and do the same thing for number 15. To get your x-intercept, plug 0 in for y and solve for x. For the y-intercept, plug 0 in for x and solve for y. All right, on question number 16, so we have to remember, when you graph anything y equals a number, your line will look like this, horizontal, side to side. When it's x equals a number, it will be straight up and down. So for my example, number 16, it wants me to graph y is -2. So remember, y is this axis that goes straight up and down. So I'm going to find -2 and then literally draw a straight horizontal line through -2. So you're going to do the same thing on number 17. Find 5 on the x-axis and draw a line straight up and down. All right, I am going to do 19 and I will let you do 18. So we're going to use point slope formula, which remember is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. The point they give you is your x1 and y1. So if you want to go ahead and start labeling your number 18, that's fine. And then remember the slope is the m. So if we plug everything where it belongs, we'd have y minus y1, which is -9. And then my m, I said, was -5/4. And then it would be x minus x1, which is 8. Okay, so my minus negative makes a plus sign here. Then I'm going to also distribute this slope into my parentheses. So -5/4 times x is just -5/4 x. Then I have to do -5/4 times -8. And that's actually going to give me a +10. So my last step would be to get this y by itself. I'd have to subtract 9 and put it on the other side. When I do that, my y is now by itself, and I have -5/4 x. 10 minus 9 makes a +1. And that would be my answer to number 19. So go ahead and try number 18 on your own. All right, 20 and 21 are very similar. But instead of giving me a point and a slope, it gives me 2 points. So I have to find the slope on my own, which we've already done. That's where we use our slope formula. Subtract the y's on top over the x's on the bottom. So if I let this be my x1 and y1, my second coordinate would be x2 and y2. Then I'm just going to follow this formula. It says to do y2 minus y1. So I'm just plugging things in where they belong. On the bottom, it wants x2 minus x1. So 4 minus -3. All right, I would use a calculator if you're not very good with negatives, but minus a negative is like adding. So that's like -2 plus 9, which is 7. And 4 plus 3 is also 7. 7 divided by 7 makes 1. So that is my slope. So now, using my point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm going to just use this first point since it's already labeled as x1 and y1 and plug it in. So I'd have y minus y1, which is -9, equals my slope, which is 1. We found that here. And then x minus x1, which is -3. So I'm going to use this space to clean it up. So my minus negative would make +9. And my minus negative with my x would really make that +3. So distribute your 1. 1 times x is x. 1 times 3 is 3. So I have y plus 9 equals x plus 3. The last thing to get this y all by itself would be to subtract this 9 and put it on the other side. I'd be left with y equals 1x, and then 3 minus 9 makes -6. So my answer is y equals x minus 6. All right, go ahead and try 21 on your own, following the same thing I just did for 20. All right, I'm going to do 22 and 23 with you. So it says to describe the slope of parallel lines. So remember, the slope of parallel lines are the exact same. So if I said I have this line y equals 2x plus 4, and I needed a slope parallel to that, I would say my slope had to be 2 as well. So that's parallel lines. For perpendicular lines, remember they're opposite in sign and reciprocals, which just means they're flipped versions of each other. So for example, if I said my slope was 1/2, a slope perpendicular to that would have to be 2/1 and negative. It has to change signs and flip over. All right, so go ahead and try this next problem. All right, I'm jumping over to number 30. It says Marianne is printing pictures for her recent trip to Europe. an online print shop charges $15 per 4x6 print, along with a flat rate of shipping charge of $3. If Mary Ann has $35 to spend, how many prints can she order? So I know that she has to pay 15 cents per prints. Whenever you see that word print, you know that's where your variable, or wherever you see that word per, you know that's where your variable will go after that. So 15 cents per print. So if I wanted 3 pictures, I would do 15 cents times 3. Regardless how many pictures I print, I know that I have to spend $3 on shipping. So I'd write plus 3, and she has a total of $35 to spend. So that's how we would set that one up. We're going to solve this for P. So I'm going to first subtract 3. I get 15 cents per print equals $32. My last step would be to do 32 divided by 0.15. So P is about, she could print 213 pictures. Let's look at 32. So it says Clint is in study hall reading The Hunger Games. After 20 minutes, he is on page 151. So if I even did this, made a little table. So the number of minutes and the page is red. So after 20 minutes, he's on page 151. After 45 minutes, he is on page 181. How many pages had Clint read prior to study hall? So that would mean we're trying to figure out like 0 minutes. We have to kind of work backwards here. So let's first find our slope. So this is essentially our x and this is our y. So I'm going to do 181 minus 151 because I subtract my y's on top. On the bottom then, I would do 45 minus 20. So this is my slope. 181 minus 151 is 30, and 45 minus 20 is 25. So that reduces to 6/5. All right, and we're essentially trying to figure out at time 0, what is the number of pages that Clint read. So I'm going to make a generic equation up to plug 0 in to solve for this y. So I'm just going to use one of these points. It doesn't matter which one. I'll just go ahead and use the first one, and we'll make an equation. So we're going to use point slope for it. So y minus my y1 would be 151 equals my slope, which we just found was 6/5, times x minus x1, which is 20. And again, I'm trying to figure out what y is when x is 0. So I'm going to go ahead and plug 0 in for x right now. So when I do that, I get y minus 151 equals 6/5 times 0 minus 20. And 0 minus 20 is negative 20. All right, so then in a calculator, let's type 6/5 times negative 20, and you get negative 24. So I'd have y minus 151 equals negative 24. So to solve for y, I'd have to add 51 to both sides, add 151. So you'd be left with 151 and negative 24 makes 127. So he had read 127 pages before study hall started. All right, let's try this very last one. Okay, it says, Elena is selling wreaths and poinsettias for her chorus fundraiser. Wreaths cost $27 each and poinsettias cost $20 each. If she sold 15 poinsettias and made $543, how many wreaths did she sell? All right. So this one is going to be set up using standard form because we kind of have two unknown things here. One of the things we're talking about selling is wreaths. So I'm going to let x equal wreaths. The other thing we're talking about selling is poinsettias. So I'm gonna let y equal poinsettias. All right, I know wreaths cost $27. So I'm gonna say 27 times x plus. I know poinsettias cost 20, and that went with y. And I know she made a total of $543. I also know that she sold 15 poinsettias. So that was my y. So where y is, I'm going to put 15. And now I'm going to solve this for x, because that's what it's asking me for. How many wreaths, which was what x is. So 20 times 15 is 300. Finish solving for x, you'd have to subtract 300 to the other side. You'd get 243. Divide both sides by 27, and we get that she sold 9 wreaths. Okie dokie. That concludes your video on a summary of what we've done so far in Chapter 4. If you have any questions, let us know.